Okay, so what we're breaking down today is the lines of defense for boxing. Now this is strictly boxing, not MMA or wrestling. So there's 3 steps that are mandatory for you to know. Okay, now step number 1, to make things very simple, to keep your opponent away from you the longest, it's gonna be your footwork. So that's step number 1 is footwork, and there's gonna be 3. We're gonna break all 3 down right now. So the first one is your footwork. Now one thing that's gonna help you with your footwork is skipping rope. Okay, the more rope you skip, the lighter on your feet you're gonna be, and the better your cardio you're going to have. So your footwork. Now, whatever direction I go, if I'm gonna bust left, my left foot needs to go first. So left, right, okay? If I'm gonna go right, right, left. So if somebody's gonna come in on me, similar to a bullfighter, you're just gonna move. They're gonna come in. Now obviously this is my center line, okay? So if they're just a tad bit on my right as they come in, I'm usually gonna cut it out the opposite way. Or if they're on the left, I'm gonna step out to my right the opposite way. So I'm trying to create all the time as much distance as I can to make the angle then more you can put your shots off. So when an opponent comes, there you go. That's your first line of defense, is your footwork, okay? You can very easily, say if your back is against the rope or the fence, the cage in a UFC match or MMA match, you can angle it off and you're cutting in like pies, slices of pies, to put your opponent back up against the fence or the ropes or the corner of a ring, something like that. So don't get stuck. Try not to get stuck with your back up against the ring or the fence. It can end up all bad for you from that one. So the person that controls the fight, whether it's MMA or boxing, is the person in the center of the ring, okay? And by doing that, how you're gonna have to be able to figure that one out, is using footwork. Footwork is mandatory. It's the number 1 key, like we just went over right now, in the sport of boxing or combat sports in general. So you're gonna always have to make angles. Rarely do you wanna have to bait somebody to go back in. If you have to go back, if you have to back up in a straight line, then hopefully you get to dictate that, and that's going to be setting up a trap for them to where you can get them to step into your line of fire and then bang, start letting things off. But ideally you always want to be cutting right or left, but not so much back, okay? It can be done, but that's another video on how to set things up, like off of a fade, but you're just gonna set traps up in and of itself. But cut the angles, and if all possible, you try to stay in the center of the ring or the octagon, because that's the person that's gonna control the fight. By doing that, it's gonna have footwork. Now, step number 2 is going to be your head movement. So, say for example, he beats me to the punch and I'm not able to make that angle. I'm stuck up against the ropes or fence in an octagon. So what you're gonna do is you can slip, roll, that kind of stuff like there. So if he's in punching range, that's one thing, and if you're using your legs correctly, footwork, you can keep him outside of that punching range so they really can't touch you. Now say if he gets in there and now he's in punching range, he can actually touch you up. Like again, you can slip, you can roll, you can do different things with your head, which the slip bag is one of the best tools you can use to create better head movement. Like if you see a lot of Mike Tyson videos, he's on that slip bag all the time because he's moving his head. If your head's always like on a swivel, like one of those bobblehead toys, you'll see it's very difficult for somebody to punch you if your head's always off center line. So the first line of defense is going to be footwork, and the second one is going to be head movement. Every time I throw a punch, every time you throw a punch, every time they throw a punch and you miss, here's a couple things that happens. One, it takes me twice as long to get that punch back, okay? Now ideally, when you throw a punch, how fast do you want it to come back? Double speed, okay, always. So for example, if you throw a punch at 100 miles an hour, it has to come back at 200 miles an hour. Now, what happens if I throw a punch and you slip it and I miss? It went out at 100, but it comes back at 50 miles an hour. It takes double time to get back to where it needs to be. So I throw this punch, you slip, by the time my hand gets back here, you're gonna end up punching me in the face because you're locked, ready, and ready to go. So you slip it, bang, and then let your punches go. So that's a great tool to have, is good head movement. Now this is the last line of defense, is your arms, your hands. Put those suckers up so you're not eating punches. One thing you can do is catch a punch with your hands, almost like you're catching a ball. Somebody throws you a ball, you're kind of catching it. Or you can take it, you can cover here. It's gonna be bouncing off your forearms or your elbows. So those hands have to be up. It's very imperative that you're covering your moneymaker, your head, and then your elbows are low enough to cover that body shot, especially that liver shot. So that you get stuck up against the ropes, boom, keep those hands up, and you can't move because he's got you stuck maybe up in the corner. Just keep those hands up. Again, a straight punch you can catch. Those hooks, those angle punches you can take to the with the arms or the forearms. Okay, that is the last line of defense, and you don't want to get really put in that situation too often, if at all. So the first line of defense is footwork. Okay, you need to keep moving. If they come in, boom, shut them down. Pop, pop, pop. That's first line of defense. Second line of defense is head movement. A punch comes, you can slip it, you can roll, there's a lot of different things. But your head's continually moving as you're walking somebody down. And the third is your arms, okay? Cover with your arms. It can be your forearms, your arms, your hands. You can catch, cover, all that kind of stuff. So that's the way it goes in that order. Footwork is first, head movement is second, and arm defense is third. Those are the three lines of defense in the sport of boxing. So if you have comments, if you have questions, please let us know. If this video was a help, please subscribe. By telling, hope your day's awesome. So for right now, if you didn't know, now you know.